The culinary influence of the Vietnamese in Australia. Some background on our case study. So Hai was born in Vietnam but fled when he was just 4 years old. He's vegetarian, a Buddhist, and currently lives in Melbourne. Vietnam is located in Southeast Asia. The China Sea surrounds its coastline areas, and neighbouring countries include Cambodia, Laos, and China. Vietnam is divided into three regions: the northwest, central, and south, and the food varies in each of these regions. The historical influences on the cuisine. So the Chinese had the strongest influence on the Vietnamese cuisine as they ruled over Vietnam for over 100 years. This explains the similarities between the Chinese and Vietnamese cuisines, such as in the use of chili, peppers, and corn. European influences originated from the Portuguese in the 16th century, but the most prominent would be the French, who occupied Vietnam for over 60 years and brought foods such as potatoes, onions, and asparagus into Vietnam. They also introduced coffee into Vietnam and also cream caramel, which now is a very popular dessert found in Vietnam. They also introduced the idea of broth, which inspired the iconic dish of pho, and the baguettes for banh mi. The Vietnamese cuisine revolves around balance, and freshness is a key aspect of the culture, and contrasting textures in the one dish are favoured. Staple foods include rice, which plays a key role in the diet, corn, wheat, seafood, soybeans, and vegetables such as Chinese broccoli and water spinach. Supplementary foods include meat and fish, which are often served with rice. Additions to food include a variety of sauces such as fish sauce and oyster sauce, spices, and lime juice, which is used to balance out the flavours and provide some acidity. The food preparation and cooking methods. So in the north, it's generally colder, so broths are generally consumed, whereas in the south it's cooler. So the food reflects a more tropical climate, and foods which are grilled or raw are often consumed. Central Vietnam, on the other hand, contains a combination of both the north and south cuisines, and overall the similarities between the foods are according to yin and yang. In the south, it is impolite to refuse a meal, whereas in the north, it is very common to refuse a meal, as historically they had less food available. Buddhism also influences the widespread vegetarian diet and inspires the five-element philosophy, which is popular in Vietnam, as well as the first and middle days of the lunar month and the large holiday of the year, Tet Nguyen Dan. The main imports include wheat, pork, corn, soybeans, whereas the main exports include rice, seafood, coffee, etc. The apparent consumption of key commodities. Overall, there are much greater amounts of food available in Vietnam, which reflects the need to feed a larger population than that of Australia. Rice is also present in much larger quantities in Vietnam, as this is a staple grain and plays a very key role in the diet. Whereas in Australia, wheat is the staple and hence is present in much higher amounts. Maize is also much higher in Vietnam, as this is used for both human consumption and also commonly used for animal feed. Vegetables are also present in much higher amounts, as the dishes in Vietnam tend to be more plant-based, whereas in Australia this is less prominent. Soy products are also much more common in Vietnam, such as in producing tofu. And seafood is also very common in Vietnam, as Vietnam is the top 5th exporter of seafood. Consists of extensive coastline areas. There are two separate waves of migration in Vietnam. The first wave involved more educated people who brought their skills and experience to Australia, whereas in the second migration wave it consisted of a much greater range of people, and it's more likely that Hai migrated during this period. The Vietnamese brought their traditional plants and herbs with them, impacting on the foods available here. The integration of the Vietnamese cuisine into Australia served a great success. The Australians were keen to try new foods and have a diverse range of culinary experiences, and also to travel to Vietnam to taste different foods. Multicultural cities around the world are also indicative of the Vietnamese influence. The Vietnamese cuisine has evolved today. There's been an evolution in the Australian taste for Asian foods and a willingness to cook these in their own homes. And Vietnamese foods and ingredients are now available in supermarkets and fresh food grocers. Thank you for listening.